Joey and I are out here at the Museum of Inquisition. And unfortunately, for colonial Colombia, the same Inquisition that took place in Spain took place in its colonies, in Mexico, in Peru, and of course in Colombia, which is to say that anyone deemed a heretic or an enemy of the faith, the Roman Catholic faith, was basically gruesomely and brutally fucking tortured and put to death. And what this includes is basically a heretic can be anyone that the local government decides is a heretic. Oftentimes governors would say that their political opponents or competitors were heretics, just as a way to kill them, to get them out of the way. Actually happened in Venezuela. And they would report them for any sort of sinful misdeeds as if they all weren't taking part in sin, which is funny because it's pretty similar to exactly what takes place in our current political climate, where our politicians engage in nefarious and grotesque things like, you know, fucking kids with Jeffrey Epstein, and then saying, oh, it's the other party when they're both doing it. And as you can see, there's a heretic eventually became not just a political opponent, but women who talked out too much. There were a lot of witches were hung, a lot of people who didn't do exactly what they were told, who didn't buy the faith in its entirety, but also a lot of them pagans. So natives were tortured brutally, horrifically. This is actually this guillotine right here, and then hanging. That's pretty good compared to how most natives were treated by the Spanish. Not to get in a pissing match as to who was worse between the French, the English, and the British, because they all were. The Spanish had an exceptional taste for blood, which it can be characterized by the fact that they had only just built the Kingdom of Spain through the Reconquista, and the slaughter that took place in it as they removed their former masters. And the Spanish, who had once been people who were more or less subservient and slaves to a foreign imperialist power, the Umayyad Caliphate, became masters to another group of people. And there's no worse master than a former slave. And there was a lot of burnings. There was a lot of feeding people to dogs. There's a notorious incident that happened in Mexico where a certain conquistador came upon a gay sex orgy that some natives were having, and the Spaniards were famous for using armored war dogs, and he sicked his dogs on the orgy, and they literally ripped everyone to pieces. There was a lot of Cortez was famous for this, for burning off people's legs, for cutting off, and it wasn't just death, it was removing of limbs. It was torching certain parts of the body. It was leaving people so gruesomely deformed. They didn't conquer through fear of death, but really through fear of rape and horrific and grotesque, abominable acts to the body, which, if you even recovered from, destroyed your life for its entirety. And this is unfortunately how an important part of what became the culture of the country, just as every colonial country in the Americas met the same fate. Hola. There's a little bit of revenge. We're gonna throw a gringo in the guillotine, and is he going out there? It is funny that people in the fuck. I guess this is how it works, man. Get even, man. Well, it would work better if he was a Spanish gringo, like a Spanish El Blanco. It is interesting watching people, because I just watched a kid in there, and there's another one going up right now to hang himself. The instruments of fucking torture and genocide are now picture opportunities. do my best to translate it. Basically, people who were persecuted were religious minorities, Lutherans, Protestants. They weren't Catholic. Muhammad is that? Oh, that's Islam, Judaism, bigamy, adultery, having too many wives, solicitation, fornication. Man, Jesus, it's weird that so many people get killed for fucking when this city has so much of its economy based around sex. Profanities. I'd be fucking for sure. Usury. Actually, I agree with that one. Some of you guys may not know this, but usury, which is the charging of interest on loans, was illegal, an illegal practice in both Christianity and Islam. And in Judaism, usury was only illegal if you did it to other Jews, which is why so many Jews became bankers, because they were allowed to do it to non-Jews. Kind of like how Muslims were allowed to enslave non-Muslims, and even Christians at certain points. The wrong literature, huh? Man, you get the wrong books. And, I don't know what that one is. Needless to say, God, I wouldn't fucking make it. Also, I believe that you could just throw, I don't know if they counted in there, but some homosexuality, anything like that, sodomy. But, you know, I think we need to bring this one back, man. There's a lot of fucking bankers who can get it. And a lot of other people like Zuckerberg and Bezos, but unfortunately, those are the guys usually running these things, and they don't get it. We do. So it's important to remember that the Spanish did not begin the Inquisition. They just kept it around the longest and brought it to 2 whole new continents. But the Germans and the French both took part. It was completely endorsed by the Pope at the time, Pope Gregory IX. And was the first one to begin it. And began in the 1200s. And yeah, it took place in Italy, France, and Germany. It was first officiated in France. Eventually made its way to Spain. At that time, Spain was owned by Muslims, and the Christians were the ones under their foot. So when they got their chance to do it, like in Spain and Portugal did it. When Spain did it. This guy right here, Torquemada. Now, I'm not sure what I said, but I'm well aware of who Torquemada is. He was the worst of the worst. No one was really... he takes sadism to a universal level. He killed 10,000 people. Those are some fucking big numbers. I believe it says he burned them. I could be mistaken, but hands down the worst of all the Inquisitors, probably one of the worst in human history. Man is up there with guys like Stalin and Pol Pot and King Leopold. The terrible things he's done. The worst part, hands down, about tortures you see in movies like Saw or other horror movies is that most of what's been done in there has been taken from stuff that we used to do, like the breaking on the rack when a man was put on a wheel, or a woman, breaking on the wheel, and basically or just tied down a large wheel was used to crack all of their limbs and leave them like jelly, distended and broken. And oh Jesus, look at this bad Larry. Hollywood didn't invent it, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, our ancestors and our forefathers did. You have a gentleman being broken on the rack, where you were tied down and your limbs were brutally broken, often by a large wheel, or a nice bat right here, a semi-crucifixion. I don't know what is being poured in that woman's mouth, but I am sure it is unpleasant. I don't know if that's an early form of waterboarding, something we have unfortunately kept around far too fucking long. And a good old torturing of the, feet on the coals. That was a very popular one. This is the most important thing I've read in the museum, hands down. And it outlines that the purpose of this museum is to make people realize that all of this happened as a result of judgment, or judging other people for their otherness. And let this museum represent what lessons should be learned from our history due to results of that otherness. Because reality is that whenever we go to some certain land, we are the other. Right now, I'm the other in this country, and I've been treated very well. And there are many others in my own. So this, unfortunately, was another spot of execution, and I got some dungeons down here, and this is pretty eerie because some people met some pretty fucking nefarious ends down here. For certain. Seems like there's a lot of these in this city, well, in most cities. Oh, hey, look. Feliz Año. Happy New Year. You ever take a picture and it just doesn't come out right? You look at it later and you go, oh man, I don't know what I was thinking. Apparently dudes used to make paintings like that. Just saying, that guy had a lot of opportunities to stop that painting, and he just went ahead with it anyway. Oh boy. After making our way through the Inquisition Museum, Joe and I walked out into this courtyard where we encountered a family that seems like they were getting mauled by pigeons. Some pigeons landing on people over here. I don't know if they're feeding them or what the fuck they're doing, but this is like the Central Park pigeon lady, Cartagena. This girl's got straight pigeons in her hair, dude. I mean, that's ballsy. I'll put them in my hands, but you get pigeon shit in your hair. That's a whole other ball game. Right, boys? That's what I'm saying. They're just waiting for the chance to shit on a person. We quickly realized that there was an old man with a cart selling bags of corn to feed to the pigeons, so tourists get some good photo opportunities. Now I've seen feeding ducks, I've seen feeding swans, but feeding pigeons is definitely a new one for me. But you know, as they say, when in Rome, or Cartagena for that matter. There you go. Joey Blizz, the word. He's standing on the other motherfucker. You greedy bastard. Joey Blizz, the bird whisperer. Their claws kind of hurt, man. I got to live out my fantasy of stealing work as a pigeon roost from a park statue. So the key to making friends in any country, man, is just having something to offer. Maybe you're funny, maybe you're good looking, maybe you got weed or cocaine. And I got to remind these guys that in Cartagena and in life, there's no free samples. You know you're gonna pay for this now, right? There's no free samples, dude. It doesn't work that way.